Well, we are almost completed through the December and early January madness. The Christmas, New Year's fixtures for FPL is always a bit crazy, where we have almost like 2 a week. We're coming up to the end of it now. We're coming up to the end of it. We've got one for the fixture starting tomorrow, Saturday, as we speak, and we've got the ones that we got the deadline of Tuesday for. And then we finally get a bit of a break. Not the football, because there's the FA Cup going on, but Premier League takes a bit of a break, which is great for us when it comes to the FPL, and we can start discussing other things. So, you know how this works. We do a review of what happened in the previous game week 19. We're going to do a preview of what comes up in game week 20. Why this week is going to be the start of something a little bit unusual. And the big talking points. The big talking points. But firstly, like I say, let's review what happened in game week 19, and quite a bit happened. We start off with Burnley versus Newcastle United. This was a comfortable win for Newcastle in the end. They went into a 2-0 lead, then Burnley came a little bit back, and then Newcastle got the third. They got the win. It was comfortable for them. Really good from them. Great to see them bounce back after what's been a couple of weeks of difficulties, want of a better word. Then we had Chelsea versus Bournemouth. Bournemouth's absolutely surprised Chelsea. I think raced into a 2-0 lead. Chelsea got it back. Brilliant. But that's probably where the good news ended when it came to Chelsea fans, because there's other things that happened since, which, of course, everyone watching this video from the start probably is already aware of. But we'll discuss it when previewing the matches coming up. Then we had Nottingham Forest versus Everton, the Sean Dyche derby, and once again, Everton proving to be too strong for Nottingham Forest. 2-0 winners, really good stuff from them. Nottingham Forest, I think, are just going to struggle. Then we came to the first considered surprise of the week, which was West Ham United drawing with Brighton and Hove Albion. A team that couldn't buy a point, all of a sudden getting a point against Brighton and Hove Albion. 2-2, and brilliant stuff from West Ham, although didn't get the win. Then we came to, was it a surprise? I suppose it was, actually. Arsenal beating Aston Villa 4-1. And fair play. I think over the past few weeks, Arsenal have been unspectacular. And it's one of those interesting things when it comes to football, that when a team is unspectacular and winning, it's either seen as one of two things. Firstly, the side of champions, that they will do a major win at some point, but not quite yet. It's just going to be edgy wins, or they're covering over the cracks, and it's papering over the issues that are going on, that they're going to lose at some point. And I think Arsenal have shown that they are the former, and fair play to them. Really well done for them, getting a 4-1 victory over Aston Villa. I didn't expect that. I thought Aston Villa would be a little bit more of a challenge, but fair play to Arsenal. And then we came to the second surprise of this game week, that Manchester United went to Wolverhampton Wanderers, a team that only had 2 points after the previous 18 game weeks, and now they've got 3 out of 19 game weeks. Now, were Man United a bit depressing and poor? Yes, they absolutely were. But don't take anything away from Wolverhampton Wanderers. They have been showing better performances over the past few weeks, whether it be against Arsenal, whether it be against Liverpool, where, the points are coming. Points are potentially coming, and if we were to consider what happened to Sheffield United a few years ago, when they also had like 3 points in the first 18 game weeks, they had a better second half of the season. Still wasn't good enough to survive, but it could be a little bit better for Wolverhampton Wanderers. So, did the surprises end there? No, we went on to Thursday, and the surprises definitely did not end there. We had Crystal Palace versus Fulham. This was a 1-1 draw. It was actually fairly well contested. Really, really good stuff. Really, really good stuff from both. And so, yeah, fair play. Even Stevens. So, really good stuff. Was it Mateta and Tom Kearney? Tom Kearney coming from nowhere to score for Fulham. Brilliant. Liverpool versus Leeds. 0-0. Third surprise. And this was a game I watched. I've got to say, Liverpool actually weren't bad. Leeds defended incredibly, and they could have won it themselves with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Frimpong is definitely showing himself to be the winger that is needed for the future formation if they were to go two up top. And I think if Salah does come back, having Salah as a striker being, that he's feeding off Frimpong might be a better solution, but absolutely brilliant from Leeds. But yeah, as much as it was a 0-0 and Liverpool were a little bit disappointing, to say the least, there's still shoots I can see of like I can see what Arne Slot's doing, and I think it's fair to say that Liverpool actually weren't bad. They were frustrating, but they weren't bad. Then we came to surprise number 4, or was it? Because Tottenham Hotspur are also down near there. But a 0-0 draw between Brentford and Tottenham Hotspur. Thomas Frank came back. But yeah, a little bit disappointing from Tottenham in terms of apparently they were boring. Not my words, I've seen it from other Spurs fans though, and that's how it is. And then finally we came to surprise number 5. We only had 10 matches. Surprise number 5, Sunderland getting a 0-0 draw against Manchester City. And by the way, can we just say, absolute props to Sunderland this year. I know we've already said it. They've already got a draw against Arsenal, a draw against Liverpool, and a draw against Man City. Impressive. The teams they've beaten, that's one thing. But to be getting a point against 3 of the top 5 as we speak, wow. Just absolute wow. Sunderland are showing... it's an old school spirit. It reminds me of the Sunderland of like the mid-2000s that were just tenacious. They were aggressive. They were perfect, basically. And actually, when I look at the way that Sunderland have always been like this, and I think actually Granit Xhaka is probably the perfect captain for Sunderland. Absolutely amazing. They match so well, so well. So yeah, really really good stuff from Sunderland. Now, how did that affect us? Well, I've got to be honest. We had a fairly poor week. We got 28 points. In my local league, it was the second lowest of the league. Everyone got a bit surprised because of the players, that did and didn't perform. It was okay, but yeah, nothing great. Frimpong, we should have probably kept him on the pitch, but even then it wouldn't have done us any good. So yeah, we are basically out of almost all the cups. The only one that we're left in is in the TNT Sports League Cup. So guess what? We're back to league form. That's fine. Things like that happen. But yeah, it was a bad week for us. So now, before we start considering the next matches, I think it's worth pointing out that thing I said at the start. Why is this week the start where things get a little bit tasty and a little bit interesting? Well, the reason is the January transfer window has opened, and we're only 2 days into that January transfer window, and already we've got players on the move. Whether that's players on the move out of the Premier League or players moving within the Premier League. Who are the players to look out for? Well, for anyone that had any of, where is it? Fulkrug, Takai, Morgan, or for Brentford, or Julian Araujo, this you now need to take them out. Fulkrug has gone to AC Milan, hoping to pick up some form. That's on loan for the rest of the season, so likelihood is they won't bring him back, but that is just how it is. Takai has joined Borussia Mönchengladbach, another team in Germany there. We've got Morgan that's gone to Shrewsbury on loan, so you probably wouldn't have picked him because going to Shrewsbury on loan means he's probably one of the kids, so you weren't probably going to get anything out of that anyway. But the other one is Julian Araujo, who is a decent player for Bournemouth, has joined Celtic on loan for the rest of the season. Those are the players that are on the way out. But there's one player that is one to keep an eye out for. He was already in the Premier League, right? He was already in the Premier League. But he potentially could be one to keep an eye out for. And that is, let's do it in the transfers. I think he will be... Bear with, let me type it in. Brennan Johnson. Why are we picking out Brennan Johnson as one to keep an eye out for? Because Brennan Johnson was at Spurs, you can see by the kit. But you can also see by the words underneath, he has moved on. Literally, the first day of the transfer window, Brennan Johnson has moved to Crystal Palace. Interesting. And actually, you look at Crystal Palace's fixtures. Villa, Sunderland, Chelsea. We need to talk about Chelsea. And Nottingham Forest. Decent matches, actually, to play against, right? This match against Newcastle is the litmus test, but this is basically have Brennan Johnson on your watch list. I'm adding him onto the watch list for myself because I think it'll be perfect, potentially for the future. But yeah, just one to keep an eye out for. So let's now look ahead to the next fixtures going on, see what it is we've got to look forward to. Well, we start with Saturday. We've got Aston Villa playing against Nottingham Forest. Aston Villa, okay, they lost. They lost badly to Arsenal. But they are still a good team. Every team has basically lost badly, apart from Arsenal. So I think they'll recover. This is against Villa Park. It is a little bit sketchier when it comes to 12:30, but I think that actually gives more an advantage to Aston Villa. And I think this is going to be a win for them. I'm going to go, I think 2-0. Potentially even 3-0. Nottingham Forest has been struggling to score recently. But yeah, Aston Villa for a win. We then come to Brighton Hove Albion against Burnley. Brighton couldn't win against West Ham United. And Burnley, they're okay. I mean, they lost against Newcastle, to be fair, so it is a tricky, sketchy one. I think the way in which it goes, the way the Brighton play, doesn't play to Burnley's strengths. I think it's going to be one of those where, again, it's going to be close, it's going to be tight. 1-0. 1-0 to Brighton. Scoring at home. Danny Welbeck is always the one that I think about. But, you know, any of those. Then we come to an interesting one. Wolverhampton Wanderers against West Ham United. At Wolverhampton Wanderers. Will the pressure be on Wolverhampton? Will the pressure be on them to get a win rather than a point? Potentially. Do I think Wolverhampton Wanderers have the edge? Yes, actually, considering the fact that their form has been worse than West Ham's, I actually think Wolverhampton Wanderers have performed better than West Ham recently. And I'm nervous about Nuno, because Nuno's a good manager, but I think he could struggle at West Ham. I worry for him. I think this is one of those also really weird ones, right? this could potentially be a chain reaction. It shouldn't be, because Rob Edwards has done decently for Wolverhampton Wanderers, but Wolverhampton Wanderers beating West Ham could be the catalyst for Nuno Espirito Santo leaving West Ham and then joining Wolves. I don't know why. I just get that feeling. But I think Wolves are going to get a win here. I really do. Matthias Mane has been brilliant. Krejci's been decent as well. So yeah, Wolverhampton Wanderers, I think you'll get a win out of this. Come to Bournemouth versus Arsenal next. The Arsenal are getting into this now. This is the litmus test. This is the test period for Arsenal's title credentials. It sounds weird, but January is sometimes the one that allows you to see, are you going to do it? Now, Man City drawing to Sunderland has really helped Arsenal here, and they've got a buffer. And this is their chance to really put the pressure on. There's only 4 game weeks in January, and Arsenal take advantage of that, basically. And that will really show to the rest of the league, we're here to stay. So I think Arsenal will basically put the pressure on. And I think they'll be back to being unspectacular when winning, but I think it will be 1-0, 2-0 win. It might not be a pretty performance, but it'll still be a win for Arsenal. No doubt about it. Quite easy to say, actually. Then we come to Sunday, and once again, we've got more Sunday fixtures than we've got Saturday fixtures. Work that shit out. Leeds United versus Manchester United. Manchester United have been disappointing. Leeds United have been brilliant. Can we just say that? Leeds United, I don't know who switched them on, but over the past few weeks, they have been amazing. The way that players have performed has worked out wonders for them in Biol, in Tanaka, Calvert-Lewin, of course. The one thing that will go against Leeds is that their main guy, and I've just forgotten who it is, their central defender, former Chelsea product, I think. But anyway, their main guy at the back, Ampadu, that's it, Ethan Ampadu, is suspended. He got his 5th yellow card in the last match against Liverpool. That could cause problems, but Leeds have been feisty. So I'm actually going to give this to Leeds. I think they'll win it. I think it's going to be 1-0. We've then got Everton versus Brentford. Weirdly, these are 2 of the teams that are the most on form, if you actually look at it. You don't believe me this, do you? Let me show you. You actually look at the status and the top performers over the past 3 weeks. Brentford player, Everton player. Really interesting, this. So, who is going to come out on top between Everton and Brentford? Well, because it's home advantage, as painful as it is, I'm going to give it to Everton. I think Everton will get the win. Louis Barry to get the winner. I think it's going to be tight because we do have Quiver and Kelleher, but yes, Everton to get the winner. We then have Fulham versus Liverpool. Fulham been decent, although they're struggling a bit. Liverpool got a point to prove. I saw enough in Liverpool against Leeds that made me think there's still something here. I think they're in this weird situation that is getting stuff on target right now. They're getting the assist. They're getting, I think it'll be a win, 2-1. I think that's a fair result to Liverpool. Newcastle versus Crystal Palace next. Crystal Palace have arrested that poor form. This is Brennan Johnson's litmus test as well. I'm going to give it to Newcastle, though. I think Voltamado will score a couple. And I think it's just a little bit too soon. But Crystal Palace, if they were to get a draw against Newcastle, could be the start of a good run for them, which is what Crystal Palace need right now, given the European stuff. They've still got sights on the Europa League with the Conference League win, if they were to win the Conference League. So, yeah, let's go for that. Tottenham Hotspur versus Sunderland next. I think the two opposites, Tottenham Hotspur being the team that's been most out of form this season compared to everyone else, even worse than Liverpool, and Sunderland, the most informed team. Who would have thought that a team that was the equivalent of being the 20th best team in the competition are in the top 10? They have been incredible. They have been amazing. Do I think they're going to get something here? It's going to be a challenge because Sunderland do struggle away. But yes, I do think they will. I think they'll get the goal. I think they'll get the win. And just because he's an Arsenal lad, or played for Arsenal, I'm going to go for Granit Xhaka for the winner for Sunderland. Why not? Be funny, be entertaining. Then we have Manchester City versus Chelsea. And right, we could talk about Manchester City dropping points against Sunderland, but Chelsea over the past couple of days decided to cook. Enzo Maresca, the head coach for Chelsea, has left his position. A guy called Callum has taken his place. No one knows who he is. But interims are interims, right? Interim managers, that they don't often get much in terms of that. But there's a lot of talk about Chelsea, the owners, and then the incoming manager. Let's start with Chelsea owners. I have no idea how Chelsea owners could have got it this wrong in terms of the player recruitment. They have spent more than any other club over the past 3 years by a ridiculous amount. Ridiculous amount. And they've spent as if they have won 3 Premier Leagues and they've got nothing to show for it. Now, have they got a European Cup trophy? Yes. Have they got a Club World Cup? Yes. But I can't work out what type of team they are. On their day, they can compete against any team in the league. But it's so rare to see them on their day. And that's the owner's fault. It's been absolutely clear that the recruitment has been down to the owners, not the manager. Now, fair enough, there are transfer committees that happen in each club, right? Not every club has the manager that makes the transfer decisions, but almost every club has the manager as a part of making those transfer decisions. You know? There would have been discussions that would happen. And for some reason, whatever Chelsea have done has been completely outside the manager's decisions, and sometimes going against the manager as well. Not great at all. And it's professional, but it's not great. That's the thing to say, right? At the end of the day, the coach, the football manager, is someone that you entrust the club with, you entrust the team with. You need to back that with giving them some autonomy over the transfers. But that's the onus. What has surprised me is the comments that people have made about potentially the incoming manager in Liam Rosenior. Now, here's the thing. The reason why the people have made certain comments about Liam Rosenior is that he is the manager at the moment of Strasbourg. And why is that a big deal? Well, Strasbourg is actually under the Chelsea Owners Group umbrella. Multi-club ownership happens in football, right? Manchester City, the owners, look after a club in Spain, in Girona. They look after New York City FC in New York, of course. I think it's Mumbai as well, and Melbourne City as well. Right? Even Crystal Palace, as was controversially applied at the start of the year, that the owners of Crystal Palace recently were also the owners of Lyon, were also part owners of a team in Brazil that the name escapes me. Liverpool as well were considering owning Bordeaux. The multi-club ownership happens all the time, but Strasbourg is part of Chelsea's. So to have a Strasbourg manager move over to Chelsea, that seems a little bit sketchy. Or at the very least, just feels like, oh, we're just promoting the guy, right? But that's ignoring the guy that they could be bringing in, because Liam Rosenior, I think, is one of the up-and-coming coaches that people don't talk about. People would talk about Enzo Maresca as the up-and-coming coach, or in the past it was Graham Potter, or he's a guy, De Zerbi, right? Those were the guys that people would talk about as the up-and-coming managers. But let me give you a hint as to the type of guy Liam Rosenior is. So when he was in charge of, I believe he was in charge of Derby underneath Wayne Rooney, Derby had a brilliant uptake in form. When he was in charge of Hull City, well, he was amazing. Hull City were a broken team where they were just about getting away with not being relegated every season. Liam Rosenior had them almost challenging for the playoffs. And when he was let go, a lot of Hull City fans were like, what are you doing? It's only recently that they've done a little bit better, and it's great for them. But yeah, like Liam Rosenior was part of the boost that Hull City got. And at Strasbourg, in the French league, a league that has been dominated by PSG so often, Liam Rosenior has provided adequate competition for them. This guy is worth keeping an eye out for, and I'm glad that he's being considered for a Premier League job. Now, I hope that the Chelsea job doesn't strangle him too much, but if it doesn't, they've got a brilliant manager in charge. And somebody that seems to know how to do the organising, but also how to build up the motivation of the players. Could be a fun time for Chelsea. Could be a fun time. And Liam Rosenior, I think, will be potentially a good appointment. Now, onto this game. It's happening too soon. Man City have got the advantage because it is the under-21s manager that's looking after Chelsea. So it almost feels like a foolish errand to predict a draw or a win to Chelsea. So I'm going to go for a draw. Yeah, it's going to be a 1-1 draw. I'm going to go for. I feel like Cole Palmer might have a little bit of fun against his former team. So yeah, 1-1 Man City versus Chelsea. So how's that going to dictate the way we have our teams? Well, we've got our original team back, which is this one, right? And now we've got to work out, are there any players we would want to consider transferring out? Because here's the thing, we are back to having, I think it's 5 transfers now, isn't it? 3 transfers, fine. We're back to having 3 transfers. So who are we going to consider bringing in now? We have Quinn Kelleher against Everton. I don't think we'll pick him against Everton, but we might pick him against Sunderland, although that could be an interesting battle. So I might pick Roofs in terms of that. But are there any players that we would consider taking out? Reinders? Absolutely not. Absolutely not for Reinders. He has been getting regular points against teams. He's good to have as a backup. Haaland feels like it's a no-brainer. Rodgers we would keep. Semenyo potentially on his way to Man City, so that's something to potentially keep an eye out for. And Bournemouth are playing Arsenal, so maybe we take him out this week. And actually, I think that's what I'm going to do. We're going to take Semenyo out. And we're going to take anyone else out. We've got the 2 Fulham players against Liverpool. I think now's the time to take Wilson out as well. I'm going to do 2 transfers. Who are we going to bring in? Well, here's the thing. As much as I said keep an eye out, I am... Well, firstly, I'm going to put Xhaka in. Right, Xhaka coming in, I think, is a done deal. But I'm probably, yeah. Do you know what? Yeah. I'm going to probably put in Johnson. Now, can we see him on our watch list? No. But yeah. I'm going to bring in Johnson. Gives us some money back. We're going to make those transfers. That gives us some money to save up. Now, what do we do in terms of picking that team? Oof. So Rangers did have a bad one against Sunderland, but whenever they do play well, he gets good points. Maybe I'm a bit crazy here, but I'm thinking Rangers instead of Foden. I'm going to have it as our main one, but actually no. I'm going to have them both in. Change my mind already. Sleeper against Bournemouth. Okay. Crystal Palace against Newcastle. Frimpong against Fulham. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Now, who do we have as our captain? Do we think Haaland will have fun against Chelsea? I'm going to go for it. That's going to be our team. So we're going to have Roofs against Tottenham Hotspur. We're going to have Saliba against Bournemouth. We're going to have Guehi against Newcastle. Frimpong against Fulham, where we're basically hoping for Fulham to not score. We're also hoping that Frimpong gets assists against Fulham. I think he's got a chance to do so. We're going to keep our faith with Morgan Rogers against Nottingham Forest. We're going to have Foden, Reinders and Haaland against Chelsea. Xhaka against Tottenham. Calvert-Lewin against Manchester United. With a backup Brennan Johnson in the background. Could be interesting. What would you do, guys, though? Do you agree with any of these decisions? Do you disagree with any decisions? I have no idea. I haven't worked things out. Based on last week, I don't know anything. But anyways, until next time, guys, all that's I have to say is best of luck.